What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video I'll be featuring a strong team based around Galarian Weezing in the Ultra League. Galarian Weezing used to be an extremely common Ultra League pick, but it's not as prevalent in more recent seasons as it used to be. So I'm taking a look to see if there's a reason why that's the case or if it's still very strong. As for the team, Annihilate on the lead, Shadow Feraligatr on the safe swap, and Galarian Weezing as the closer. This team functions in an ABB style where the Shadowgator safe swap, besides being completely busted, baits out Tentacruel, so the G-Weez doesn't have to see it. The Ape lead is for opposing steel types as well as the close combat and dip potential. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, into first battle, we lead Annihilate into an opposing Galarian Weezing, so we do see one right off the bat. We're going to safe swap into our own Shadowgator, and we're going to overfarm here, right? We're not going to be threatened by a brutal swing if they decide to throw it, so we're going to overfarm just in case they do go for that catch, which they do go for here, of which we're able to land that Ice Beam. It does a massive damage to the Virizion, and since that Ice Beam landed, Shadowgator can take switch here. And that's exactly what I need to do since I don't want my Annihilate against their G-Weezing. And here I throw this Hydro Cannon on alignment since that would be the CMP tied to their Leaf Blade. And my opponent ends up reading that, so they get a double kick for free, which is very nice for them. And now they end up giving up switch, not wanting to give up that Shadow Claw farm down by swapping in their own Shadowgator. So I'm going to go for a Hydro Cannon of my own, pivot back into Annihilate, since this is where I'm going to get the most use out of my Annihilate. Hydro Cannon will hurt from this Gator, does massive damage from my Annihilate, but I'm able to hang on, go for the Rage Fist. This will take out the opposing Gator if they let it go, which they do, and it looks like they're saving their shield for the Galarian Weezing. They throw a Brutal Swing, not wanting to risk me getting to another Rage Fist. Down goes my Annihilate, and here is a situation where having Overheat on my own Galarian Weezing would be amazing, since it would give me something to hit my opponent for neutral. I bring in my Gator to try and get that final shield from them. They make a nice read and catch that Hydro Cannon, so that's going to make this end game a little bit more tricky. Because of that catch, this is now anybody's game, so we're going to see what we can do. Like I mentioned earlier, this is one of those situations where you would want Overheat on Galarian Weezing. I'm running Play Rough for the other fighters and dark types you see in the meta. Honestly, you could run Overheat if you want, because if you get locked up against like a Registeel or a Steelix, then this matchup is completely miserable, while Overheat will be able to fight back in that. So I would say it all comes down to preference as to whether or not you want Overheat versus Play Rough. My opponent called the first Brutal Swing, so you know what? We're going to full send the Play Rough this time. See if it lands. It does. Opponent hangs on with 1 HP, makes their own move, but we can hang on since it is a Play Rough, and we get the Fairy Wind down. GG's. Next battle, we lead Annihilate into Cresselia, another terrible lead. So we are going to safe swap into that Shadowgator right away and see what my opponent wants to do. They're staying in with the Cresselia. They throw 4 Cycle Cuts, then answer with a Mana Buzz. And with this Shadow Claw head start, I'll be able to force a shield from this Mandy, which is exactly what I want to do here, or need to do here. They throw a Dark Pulse lands. Now I'm over farming, and here I throw an alignment. Oh, that hurts to watch. Just like last game, happened again this game. Throw an alignment, expecting to play into the CMP tie there because I'm in Dark Pulse range, but my opponent reads it. They get a Snarl for free, and oh, that just feels so bad watching back like that. But down goes the Gator. We do get that shield advantage and land an Ice Beam, which is fantastic. Now I can just bring in my Annihilate and just load up on tons of energy. We take 1 Aerial Ace, we're going to take another Aerial Ace, and we're going to go for a Rage Fist and then a counter down. Since I won't be able to counter down here before they reach another Aerial Ace, and I don't want to give up a shield, so we will get the counter down. Since I am boosted, I'm going to stay in this matchup and land a Rage Fist here. And then I'm going to swap out because I don't want to give the Cresselia a ton of farm. So Rage Fist lands. I bring in my Galarian Weezing, and this is that Registeel. Again, another situation where Overheat would come in handy. We don't have it, so we're going to have to make do here. It's going to be a lot of energy management and swaps to try and work around it. Second Brutal Swing comes through. Does land. That does pitiful damage to the bulky Registeel. Now I'm going to give up a shield to the Zap Cannon, because I need my Weezing to win this match, considering what they have on the lead and the Cresselia, and my Annihilape's almost done. Plus the Zap Cannon will do more damage than anything the Cresselia has, because I'm guessing that they're not on Future Sight. When I hard swapped in my Galarian Weezing, they pivoted to the Registeel. If they had Future Sight, I felt like they would have thrown that before pivoting. So that's why I was using my shields on the Zap Cannon there. Annihilape gets off a clutch Rage Fist in that situation. Now I'm going to let this go. Moonblast is resisted. Grass Knot is resisted, because again, that Zap Cannon is what I want to save my shields for. You go for Moonblast number 1. Let it go. Moonblast number 2. Back in comes Registeel. Here comes that Zap Cannon. We're going to give up a shield to it. And it's actually Focus Blast. My opponent was looking like they were wanting to save 1 lock-on's worth of energy. But in doing so, that makes it so I'm not debuffed. And when these Brutal Swings are already doing pitiful damage, not adding a debuff on top of that is crucial. As the timer comes up, so we're able to take out the Registeel. It's gonna be very close. That Cresselia is in the red health. We're in the red health. Who's gonna take it? We just barely do, as we have the higher percentage left. And that is a good game. Bit of dancing around there. Next battle, Zygarde Lead. Staying with the Annihilape, we're going to throw a Rage Fist after 10 counters. Honestly, you could throw Close Combat and dip if you want, but I prefer the Rage Fist in this matchup, because getting your Annihilape boosted, and then that sets your backline up for either shield or switch advantage, which is kind of exactly what you want here. So they go for the Outrage. Now we farm up, we do reach that Close Combat, and this will KO the Zygarde. So like I said, give you that shield or switch advantage. They end up giving the shield. That's perfectly fine. I can come on Galarian Weezing over farm here. If they're on Outrage, they're most likely on Bulldoze and not Crunch, which they are, as they show the Bulldoze. Super effective, but it does pitiful damage there to the Galarian Weezing. And now we're going to over farm, go for the Play Rough. If they're bringing in a Licky Licky against the Galarian Weezing, then there's a good chance they're on Earthquake, so I do respect it with the shield. But they bait, and oh, that feels bad. Like, even if they're on Shadow Ball, getting baited with a Body Slam there, that's very, very unfortunate. I do land another Play Rough. I decided to let this one go in case it is another Body Slam bait, but they are on Shadow Ball. They're able to land that, which is very nice for them. So my opponent making the nice calls there in that mid game. They have a Steelix in the back, and I have a shield, but really there's no use in me shielding that Psychic Fangs, because I'm not going to reach 3 Hydro Cannons regardless. So I just let it go, make the second Hydro Cannon, and somehow this way Galarian Weezing's going to have to close out, but just too low on HP that from here on this match is just over, especially that my opponent still has 3 shields. I overfarmed to the max. 3 shields, sorry. 1 shield and 2 Mons. Where'd I get 3 shields from? Play Rough takes out the Zygarde, and yeah, my Weezing just does not have enough HP to make another Brutal Swing as I get rollouted down. GG's. Next battle, Annihilape into Guzzlord. Fantastic lead. This is amazing. And what's even better is that my opponent is staying in. But what makes this lead amazing is that Annihilape destroys it, and so does Galarian Weezing. So like, if your opponent swaps out in this matchup, you don't need to swap out either. Like, you can stay in with your Annihilape, but you just need to make sure you win switch here so you can get your Galarian Weezing on to the Guzzlord. And yeah, you're fine not taking switch either, but only if you're able to get like a massive shield and energy advantage, because that way if they do bring in the Guzzlord against your Gator with that massive energy and shield advantage, you can just chuck Ice Beams at it. So really all around, there's a lot of flexibility in how you want to play Guzzlord Lead, which is why I say it's an amazing one for this team. We're going to over farm with the Gator, play to the CMP tie to their next move. They let it go. They save both shields for the Gator, which is fantastic because I have that Galarian Weezing for it. I'm going to fire off the Ice Beam that does get their first shield. Now they're gonna fire off a move because they don't want me to reach a Hydro Cannon. Fine by me, because I can let the Dragon Claw go, come in my Galarian Weezing, and just Fairy Wind this thing all the way down. They can go for Sludge Bomb, they can go for Crunch, they can go for Brutal Swing, Dragon Claw, doesn't matter. The entire moveset is resisted there. And they have their own Licky Licky in the back. And this game should just be a win for us since we do have 2 shields remaining. They do get the shield right in the play rough, not expecting me to bait when they have that much HP, and they were right. So they made a good call there. But I'm able to land another play rough. I go for the cheeky catch here. My opponent's patient. Nice job by them in not allowing that to happen. But it doesn't matter because I got off a ton of valuable counter damage. My opponent does body slam bait me once, and I'm feeling bold here. I'm like, you know what? I had 2 shields. The likely thing they're going to do is get a double body slam bait me, which is exactly what they do. I don't even know if that was a necessary bait call or not, but we get it right, and my opponent concedes. GG's. Next battle, A/Slash Lead, the Dream Lead here. See what my opponent does. Now they swap into a Shadow Gator. I don't have a great answer to this, so I'm gonna throw 5 counters and then swap into my own Shadow Gator just to catch the Hydro. And if you don't catch the Hydro, well, they're gonna be throwing a Hydro anyways, unless they're on Crunch, which only does incrementally more damage. So either way, 5 counters, swap into your Gator, you're good to go. And especially if it's like such an advantageous lead like that against the A/Slash, you want to do what you can to maintain switch here, of which once I land that Hydro Cannon, I can just shield once farm down, and I'll get that shield back if they come in with the A/Slash, since 2 Hydros just about KO it. So first Hydro does land, brings it to the yellow. Second Hydro will land. See if my opponent wants to preserve that A/Slash at all. They don't, they just let it go. Hard swap into Giratina. I have my Galarian Weezing for it. And this is just a GG's. It is Shadow Claw, which makes the matchup a teeny bit better for them, considering Dragon Breath is the alternative. But either way, it's such a dominating matchup for the Galarian Weezing with the super effective Fairy Winds and then the super effective Brutal Swing to play roughs. My opponent looks like they closed out of the app. So I'm going to load up to 100 energy, just fire off this play rough to make it go quicker. Galarian Weezing just floating there menacingly. Play rough lands. We get the Fairy Wind down. And the A/Slash is at minimal HP after we wait for it to come in due to them closing the app, and we get the Fairy Wind down. GG's. Next battle. Annihilate into Drifblim. Atrocious lead. Swapping into that Gator. See what my opponent does. They bring in a Pangoro, and here I just let my opponent throw first, right? Because I'm like, if they go for a close combat, so be it. That's going to be a ton of farm onto my Annihilate, and right, like I don't think they're going to go for a close combat anyways, because say my opponent's thinking if I shield that close combat, then a single Hydro will KO them and I'll be able to take switch, do the pacings. With the energy lead I got. So they're most likely options going for the Night Slash, but either way, no matter what they do, it sets you up well for how you can play it afterwards. So I do get that shield advantage. Night Slash does land, they get the boost, so and then reach another Night Slash. So I'm happy giving up 1 shield and trading it for all this energy. I got 10 counters of energy against that Pangoro right there. So I can throw 1 counter, then a Rage Fist, another counter, then another Rage Fist. This will force the final shield from my opponent, or they will just let it go. And now their Drifblim's as good as dead. They're not going to reach another move, where they have a Primeape in the back, and that's just game over. Rage Fist lands, and my opponent does concede. GG's. Next battle. Annihilate into Shadow Gator. Disclaimer, I haven't quite figured out the best way to play this lead yet. Load up to the close combat, bait with the Rage Fist, as it will most likely get the shield. But then if they no shield it, then it feels bad because you could have just gone for the Rage Fist right away and dealt boosted counter damage, or just go for the Rage Fist right away. And if they let it go, then you can just load up and catch the next Hydro on your own Gator. But the reason why I say I haven't quite figured out the right way to do it is because sometimes if you go for that Rage Fist right away, they do shield it, and that's fantastic because now you're getting that boosted counter damage without having to threaten the shield with the close combat. But like if they no shield it, then it gets a little iffy. Same thing with building up. I don't know. It's just a really weird lead. But if anybody has ideas as to how they play it differently, feel free to let me know. Or you could experiment around with it yourself, going for that Rage Fist right away and seeing how it works for you, or building up to that close combat and then going for the Rage Fist. Either way, you have to stay in that lead for the most part, because if you swap into your own Gator, you're now behind a Claw, and that matchup doesn't really work out well. So, and by staying in, you get some valuable damage off on their own Gator, because it could be a problem against this back line later in the end game. My opponent has a Drapion here. I know that Crunch will not KO me, so I go for the close combat. Survive it, then go for the close combat. Does very nice damage to the Shadow Drapion. And now I'm coming to my Weezing. I don't want to go for the Play Rough right away. I want to load up on energy instead, which is what I'm going to do, just because I know I won't necessarily be too threatened by an Aqua Tail. So I get to 100 energy, fire off the Brutal Swing. And as long as my opponent doesn't make a catch, this game is over, because even though I have minimal HP, I will be able to reach a Play Rough and a Brutal Swing for the Zygarde and Shadow Gator respectively. My opponent waits that turn, tries to make a catch. We don't let it happen. Get to fire off the Brutal Swing against the Gator, and now the Play Rough against the Zygarde before they reach a move, and we are able to KO it. GG's. Next battle, Annihilate into Drifblim. We saw how we play out this lead before, so we're going to do the exact same thing, swap into the Shadow Gator, and they bring in a Steelix. Again, fantastic. We're able to get switch or shield advantage in this matchup, which for Annihilate's case will then, if we get shield advantage, we'll then be able to allow it to get an energy lead to then threaten the Drifblim with the Rage Fists. So first Hydro does land, does get shielded, second Hydro lands, and my opponent stops tapping here. They want to give my Annihilate less energy, but that's fine by me because we're able to take the Steelix's health down, and this ensures that it doesn't reach another Breaking Swipe or Psychic Fangs about my Annihilate, so that's fine. I do get 2 counters and a shield advantage. Now I'm going to bring in my Galarian Weezing and watch it go to town with that shield advantage. My opponent's staying in, so it seems that they are a little weak to it in the back. They are not. Honestly, they probably would have been better just swapping into the Miltank right away, so they didn't have to take that Brutal Swing onto the Drifblim, but we'll take it. We overfarm basically to the max, fire off the Play Rough. We do shield correctly, which is the Thunderbolt, which is very nice for this situation. My opponent throws on Alignment, gives me a free Fairy Wind, and that's very, very nice because energy management is going to be key to this end game. So I store all that energy just because I know that those Brutal Swings will be more handy against the Drifblim than the energy thrown into the Miltank. Plus, I can counter it down a ton due to our misaligned switch clocks. So I get a ton of counter damage, which also gives me a very nice energy head start. So now I can land 1 Rage Fist against the Drifblim, second one to get the shield, and look at this right here. My opponent goes for the farm down. They do not get it. We make a 3rd Rage Fist, and this will seal the matchup for us as down goes the Drifblim and my opponent concedes. GG's. Next battle, Annihilate into Shadow Gator. Again, tricky lead here to play out. We're just going to go for that Rage Fist right away, which my opponent does play to the CMP tie for. They do end up winning, so that's nice information to have. So I go for the Rage Fist, hoping my opponent shields it. They don't, they let it go. And I'm like, okay, they win CMP. I'm thinking to myself that I'll just swap on the CMP tie because they're going to throw that to maximize. I wasn't even looking at the HP bar of the Gator, and that's just a massive misplay by me, because if they were to play to that CMP tie, their Gator would just die. They wouldn't they wouldn't do it. So of course they're going to throw it earlier. So I should have just swapped out to catch that Hydro into my own Gator as soon as they would get it. So again, a little bit of a misplay by me, but just something you guys can keep in mind as well. And here I was hoping I would survive that crunch, because if I survive that crunch, I could bank that Rage Fist for later, which I felt like would have been clutch. But that crunch apparently would just KO'd. So now I have to bring in my Gator with my Annihilate gone and go for these Hydros to take it out. And there I swap trying to make a catch, but my opponent overfarms, and oh, that's so unfortunate, because I could have just stayed in and gone for the Hydro, and then bam, their Drapion's gone. But now their Drapion has like 11 Sting stored, 100 energy, and that's just, I don't know how I'm going to be able to deal with that in the end game, considering they have an Alolan Sandslash, of which situations like this, the Steel types are advocating for overheat. I will say in these battles, I've had more situations where I've wanted or needed overheat instead of play rough. But overall, in general, I feel like it's a good 50-50 mix as to which move I've needed more in the situations. So again, it's a call by you and it's up to you. As you'll see there, my opponent had 2 crunches stored, took out the Gator, and now took out the Galarian Weezing with a Sludge Bomb. A little bit of bad manners from them right there, as down goes the Weezing. GG's. Next battle, Annihilate into Clefable. Bad lead, swap into the Gator. We're going to overfarm by 1 here, just in case my opponent tries to go for the catch on that Hydro Cannon. They don't, so we'll be able to fire it off. Oftentimes, the Clefable will go for like Swift Chip and then dip. And same with like an opposing Galarian Weezing will go for like Brutal Swing Chip and then dip. But this one just goes for the Moonblast, which is fantastic that they didn't bait and we got the shield call correctly. So maybe they're on Meteor Mash Moonblast, which would be nice just due to the slower pacing. And what's even better is we baited out the Gastrodon, so our Galarian Weezing can avoid this. That's fantastic. They have to go for an Earth Power here to KO me, or if they go for a Body Slam, which they do, I'm going to swap back out into my Annihilate, save my Shadow Gator for later, where hopefully I will reach an Hydro Cannon in the end game. They go for an Earth Power. No point in me shielding this since I know the Clefable will be coming back in shortly to meet it. Clefable comes in, we go for the Rage Fist, and we do get the counter down where my opponent fates with what would be the Meteor Mash if they are running it. So that's very fortunate, especially since we reached the Rage Fist here, which is extremely valuable damage against the Malamar. Now, Malamar's moveset here of Superpower, Foul Play, they're both resisted and double resisted, which is very fortunate, but these Psy Waves, oh, they hurt. They add up over time. So this is still going to be a very, very close end game. But I just need to make sure I don't jump the gun too early and throw, you know, this Brutal Swing right away. I'm just looking to load up on back-to-back Brutal Swings, because my opponent's win con there was me throwing the Brutal Swing right away, catching, and then them outpacing to another move on the Malamar. So by always over farming to the back-to-back Brutal Swings, we do avoid that catch potential and are able to take the win. GG's. So, final verdict. Galarian Weezing is still really good, plain and simple. Its typing, the fast pacing of Brutal Swing, and choice of a nuke move all complement each other really well. You know, not much else to say on that. It's just good. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.